Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Kosivi Desu. I am the regional lead of GNDR in Africa. I am also the responsible, I would say, the risk-driven lead of on climate change in Africa. It's my pleasure to meet you all here and let me say launch the year of the climate change in GNDR. You have the agenda in front of you. My director, Marcos Raba, will welcome you first. Then we'll share also the overview of the agenda and the aim of the session with you all. Then we get into the presentation. But before I invite Marcos, let me just refresh you that we are a global network for disaster reduction, GNDR, which means that our main sector of intervention is disaster risk reduction, and we want to invade, if we want, the sphere of climate change with our background, with our knowledge, with our expertise. And this is something I want all of us who are joining this call to keep in mind before we get into the debate. Feel free to enrich the debate via the chat box. Also, make sure that in case you are not very comfortable with French or English, you might be very comfortable with one of them. Click on the interpretation bottom and select your language. The interpretation is there, and I'm quite faithful that everything is working well on technology aspect. Let us know if you have any problem. And again, welcome. Thank you, Aminata, for the support, and welcome, Marcos. Over to you.
Thank you, Adesu. I see that, Aminata, I see that, attendees cannot access to the chat, or just they can chat to host and panelists. I don't know if we can enable to everyone.
Yeah, it's done now. It's open now to everyone, so everyone can discuss with everyone.
Great. That is great. Well, thank you. Welcome everyone. Thank you, Adesu. Yeah, I just wanted to, we are still waiting for Animesh, the representative from UNDRR, but I'm pretty sure he's joining us shortly. I just wanted to make some introductory remarks maybe, and explain a little bit the aim of this webinar. Just again, for starters, just wanted to explain, or to make sure that everybody knows that GNDR recognize climate change to be a man-made crisis, largely created by actions made in the global north. We know that that is a reality, and GNDR members describe climate change as a super risk driver. That's why we are insisting and investing so much efforts on this. Those living on the front line of risk have been documenting, evidencing, and highlighting the catastrophic impact climate change is having across the globe, and especially in the global south. Our members are reporting continued increase in climate extreme events such as floods, droughts, storms, changing weather patterns, soil and forest degradation, etc. So we see that these secondary impacts of the climate extremes, such as food insecurity, poverty, and increasing tension and conflict over natural resources, are clearly demonstrating the cascading and interconnected nature of climate risk. So this means that climate solutions should take into consideration the vulnerabilities that climate change has triggered and their impacts on frontline communities. This is possible when DRR and climate change actors and local communities come and plan integrated solutions together. We believe that GNDR has a specific role in the COP negotiations. We aim to bring risk-informed expertise from our members across the globe to the climate change context, but also we support the effort in championing civil society's demands on climate change. Here we see our strategic contribution to the discussions to be the link between climate change negotiations and risk reduction policies and plans at all levels. And again, in outlining how the climate change negotiations can and must be risk informed. This is basically the position of GNDR towards COP and our strategic position in climate change policy. Anyway, I said the idea for this webinar is to try to recap what GNDR did at COP27, reflect on successes and sorry, and what we can do together at COP28. We want also to hear from UNDRR on their plans for COP28. I see that Animesh join us. Thank you for that. And we want also to hear from you, from our members, on your reflections from COP27 and aims, of course, for the next COP, for COP28. The idea is to share with you the roadmap of action between now and COP28, and with you, of course, with you map, you know, the needs, messages, and also members that would like to engage more with GNDR at our climate change work. That is basically the idea. Those are the objectives for the webinar today. And following the agenda, and sorry if I'm going too fast, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna need some more time for discussion and Q&As. Following the agenda, I just wanted to introduce you Animesh Kumar, who is the head of the UNDRR office in Bonn. As you probably know, this office serves as the organization's global facility for climate action, comprehensive risk management and disaster data. Part of the UNDRR HQ's risk knowledge branch, the Bonn office works with multiple partners and mechanisms, leading global efforts on climate negotiations and processes, including losses and damages, an alliance, disaster-related statistics, and Sendai framework, and SDG monitoring. Before joining this position, Animesh served as the deputy head of UNDRR regional offices in Asia Pacific in Bangkok and in Africa in Nairobi. In these capacities, he led regional policy and coordination on disaster risk reduction, including through governmental and stakeholder mechanisms, besides bolstering joint UN efforts on resilience. He is credited for over 50 UNDRR publications in these two positions and was granted the UNDG Silver Award in 2016 in Africa. He's got an extensive career, as you know, and he holds a PhD in adaptation and sustainability. He also holds several certificates in project management, leadership development, and change management. I hope, Animesh, I was fair enough with your introduction. Again, this is one of the main parts of the agenda for today, to listen to Animesh, to hear from reflections from UNDRR for the COP28. No further comments from my side. Animesh, over to you, and thank you again for being with us today.
Thanks a lot, Marcos, and greetings once again to everyone, and congratulations, Marcos, once again for your new position. It's always good to have the leadership sustaining so well. What I would do in my presentation, I have a few slides that I would share, and essentially I would try to make a case for how disaster risk reduction is becoming a core instrument to raise and achieve again the climate ambition. Because so far, the way things have progressed in the last several decades and years, that people have started seeing disaster risk reduction and climate change as two separate communities. While we understand that there are natural linkages between the two, and there is no two separate community, we all work together. And there's a lot to learn from each other and move forward together so that we can work towards a larger resilience objectives of different international agreements. All of this in terms of the isolated or siloed implementation becomes meaningless when it comes to implementation at the ground level, at the grassroots level, which is where most of you are working at. So for a vulnerable farmer, it doesn't really matter whether something is coming from the adaptation route or loss and damage route or disaster risk reduction route. What he cares or she cares about is about building resilience and facing the climate emergency on a day-to-day basis. And hence, what I would do is to build upon the iterative steps we have been taking. And I think I would say the COP27 was a watershed moment for disaster risk reduction, because all of us were there, and many of us were there, and we really felt that things are progressing suddenly very fast. And it was not just what happened during those 2 weeks, but I think a lot of efforts that have been put into the last 10 years that converged into action at the COP27. So just to recapitulate on the key outcomes, and I'm just focusing on those COP27 outcomes that have high relevance for disaster risk reduction. The first one, of course, the historic decision on the loss and damage fund and the funding arrangement. All of us have been very happy about it, elated about it. That is something which we have been waiting impatiently for several years. So finally, this decision has really helped us in terms of moving forward the discussion. Loss and damage is the natural entry point for disaster risk reduction into the climate domain. And a decision of this nature really helps us understand and configure disaster risk reduction very carefully, very meticulously into that climate discussion. Why is it also very important? Because this helps. So far, the discussion on loss and damage, I believe, has been more of a political and
le débat a été un débat politique et
technical issue. And I think the disaster risk reduction community or the disaster management and humanitarian community has a lot to offer when it becomes a concrete and technical issue. Because the first question that somebody would want to ask before moving into the funding decision is, how much are we losing and where are we losing? And this information system is generally not there. We face disasters and we manage disasters on a day-to-day basis. So there's a lot that we can offer in context of the tracking of losses and damages, the official statistics that we have through the Sendai framework mechanism, and all the matrix and toolkits that have been developed, which are of such great value into the loss and damage discussion. The second historic decision was, of course, the COP25 set the basis and adopted the Santiago Network for technical assistance. But the institutional arrangements is something which was agreed upon at the COP27. Here you see the joy in the face of so many people who had been working towards this agreement. So essentially, while the loss and damage funding arrangement will look into the addressing part of loss and damage, we also understand that developing vulnerable countries have capacity gaps and they need technical assistance. And the Santiago network just provides that in context of providing the right contextualized technical assistance to the developing countries. Again, disaster risk reduction and averting and minimizing and addressing loss and damage have so much in common that we can't have two different lines of offer to a country on technical assistance. And hence Santiago network becomes another converging point between disaster risk reduction and climate action. Needless to say, there were other several initiatives launched at the COP27, and one of them was the disaster risk reduction workstream of Adaptation Action Coalition. But we also launched the Early Warning for All Action Plan that will come in the subsequent slides. But there were so many initiatives which you will see that coming up from the disaster risk reduction side, coming into the core of climate agenda. Also, the ongoing discussion on the global stocktake, which would be one of the primary outcomes of COP28. The midterm review of the Sendai framework, which is ongoing. Many of us will actually meet in person or join virtually next week in New York, where the political declaration on the midterm review of the Sendai framework will be adopted. And this happening at the same time as the discussion on the global stocktake of the Paris Agreement is a very unique opportunity to ensure that there is a complete coherence between the Sendai framework and between the Paris Agreement, using the midterm review and global stocktake as a kind of a framing of discussion. So there's lots of discussions ongoing between the two processes on this specific point. And we hope that moving forward, the global stocktake and the midterm review would help us bring the two communities further closer together. Similarly, on the global goal and adaptation, which we feel would be another major substantive discussion, which is ongoing, and again will converge at the COP28, would be the harnessing and application of the official matrix, statistics, data, targets, and indicators that the Sendai framework offers, which can be readily be used in the context of adaptation. Again, this is something which we have been making a very strong case on behalf of the disaster risk reduction community. And if you see some of the reports that have come out of the UNFCCC, including the workshop 3 of global goal and adaptation, they really refer to Sendai framework as one of the core inputs into the GGA process. Now, moving forward towards COP28, what we are trying to do now is building upon these very substantive processes which are ongoing. We're trying to make a strong case for disaster risk reduction as being a key instrument to advance the climate ambition. We will be engaging further into the intergovernmental processes. We are already talking with different member states and different parties. With partnerships like GNDR, we are very enriched by this host system of civil society organization. We will continue engaging on advocacy at the global, national, and local levels, and following a lot of consultative processes, in particular on global stocktake, global goal and adaptation, and the loss and damage agenda. Few of the key points that we would want to highlight at COP28, and these are our core offers and core products that we look towards launching at COP28. The first one will be a global status report on early warning systems. What is the current status of early warning systems? And this is something which many of you might have already read in the report we launched last year, which said that only half of the world is covered through an early warning system. How much have we progressed in the last 1 year? What is the new information available? This is something we will be compiling in the form of this report and launching at the COP. The second would be that we would continue to focus on the data and other processes that disaster risk reduction has to offer in the loss and damage funding decision. Recently, we had a very good workshop here organized by UNFCCC, where majority of the funding instruments that were being presented were coming from the disaster risk financing side. And it helped us understand that perhaps it makes sense for compiling all of these financial instruments and making it in the context of loss and damage funding decision. So we are working with a think tank to develop a loss and damage funding primer, which will compile all possible DRR funding instruments into one place as a knowledge piece that will help understand this discussion better. We are also in the process of revamping our existing loss and damage tracking system. Many of you might be aware of GNDR, which has been in existence for the last 30 years almost. We are revamping this system to align it better with the loss and damage agenda. We had a very good workshop in November, right after COP27. And last week, we had a very good workshop here in Bonn again, where we presented some of the key features of the new system. We plan to announce this new system at the COP28. Apart from these, I already mentioned about the alignment between the midterm review of the Sendai framework and the global stocktake, application of Sendai matrix into the global goal and adaptation, and kind of programming all of this in the framework of comprehensive risk management, which is one of our flagship programs of UNDRR, through which countries are being assisted to better align their DRR plans and the national adaptation plans at the national level, and through our flagship Making Cities Resilient program at the local level. Our core advocacy piece here is in the context of Zero Climate Disaster campaign. We firmly believe that all disasters can be avoided. There is nothing natural about disasters, and we can prevent all people from getting affected by disasters through a campaign that we launched last year called the Zero Climate Disasters. We would also keep focusing on some of the key components. Many of us are aware that we have put forward a proposal as UNDRR, partnering with UNOPS and other UN organizations and international organizations, proposed to host the secretariat of the Santiago Network. We will get to know the result of this bid in the next 1.5 months at the Bonn Climate Change Conference. And then through a decision at the COP28, the decision on the host will be completed. And we are very hopeful that whoever gets the position of being the secretariat, whether it is UNDRR or whether it is somebody else, would continue to configure disaster risk reduction into the new system. I also mentioned about our contribution to the Loss and Damage Fund. We are a member of the technical support unit supporting this process. We are also a member of the technical expert group on comprehensive risk management. We are supporting the LDC expert group on NAPS. And I also mentioned about the global goal and adaptation and the stocktake. So there are many formal processes which are ongoing, which will converge at COP28. And you will see that we are representing the DRR system and the Sendai system to ensure that disaster risk reduction is a core part and parcel of all these discussions. Finally, there are some other events as well, which will be organized in the lead up to the COP27. I just mentioned about the midterm review next week in New York. There are a series of events on climate change that we will be organizing. Then UNFCCC's Bonn Climate Conference, 5 to 15th of June. We look forward to meet many of you at the subsidiary body meeting. In fact, partnering with GNDR, we're very happy to organize an event in the morning of 12th of June, Monday in Bonn, where we will try to make a strong case of exactly what I said, the alignment between disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. And we will be organizing events at the subsequent regional climate weeks in each of the continents. I'm not sure if many of us are aware of the Climate Ambition Summit, which will be organized in September in New York, but more details of it are still being awaited. But we hope that early warnings for all will be a key focus area. Nothing can be done. We are a small organization, but we play a convening role. We work in partnerships. So these are some of our alliances and networks that we work very closely with, including GNDR and other networks and alliances. And we hope that we will continue strengthening this partnership in our resolve towards making the world more resilient. So I'll stop with that, Marcos. Happy to answer any further question. And these are some of the links where people can get more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nimesh. Instead of Marcos, I will take on. And really, really happy to always hear your presentation and see the perspective of UNDRR on climate change. Dear colleagues, you've heard from Nimesh, and I know as DRR actors, we really need to fetch from the perspective of UNDRR, but to keep our statue of civil society and, if possible, criticize a bit what UNDRR is doing from time to time. So if you have a question, please raise your hand very quickly. And usually when you have Nimesh on board, count your minutes, because he will move to another meeting before the end of this meeting. So make sure that you raise your questions now, and I'm sure he will be happy to to come with his reflections before we shift. Yeah, I can't see any hand yet. Okay, I can see Azra Gul, and please shout if I failed to see your hand. So Azra, over to you, please.
This is Azra from Pakistan. I have a question from Manish sir. Can you please share one key achievement of the COP27 from Egypt?
Did you get it clearly, Animesh? If so,
yeah. I think there was, there were a few slides that I talked about the key achievement, but I think from the community we come from, the establishment of the loss and damage funding arrangement and the funds itself is a key, I would say it was a miracle. All of us knew that we were staying on after the COP and the negotiations were not concluding. And from a point we felt, okay, this is going to just be another conference. It just turned out to be such a momentous conference. So the establishment of the loss and damage funding arrangements, the endorsement of the institutional mechanism for the Santiago network, I think are some of the key wins in the loss and damage community that I must cite as a success.
Thank you.
Thank you. And another hand very quickly. So I have the hand of Sarah and Ramiz. Let us start with Sarah, please.
Thank you very much. I am Sarah Duval, the founder from Hope of Africa, Bofa, Cameroon. I thank you very much for your work done. I just wanted to find out what is the UNDR doing concerning Cameroon, because of late we've had a series of water flood flashes around, and which is something which is it has taken us, I would say, unaware. And from where I come from in the Southwest region, we have an active volcanic mountain, of which we, when we look at when we talk about the law of average, we will see that the mountain might anytime soon have a kind of eruption. So I don't know what can we do, or what can be done, or which kind of assistance we can get from you people. So we start preparing before we get to that stage, if at all we eventually get to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Animesh. If you don't mind, maybe I'll collect another question, then two more, and you can respond, please. So the second one is Ramiz, and after that, Patrick Kapanda. Sorry for pronouncing. Over to you, Ramiz.
Namaskar from India. I'm Ramiz, basically an educator and connected to community work at the grassroots. My question, it was already a pleasure to hear from Animesh sir, and my question to Animesh sir would be that education and information dissemination and awareness is one of the key parts of disaster DRR efforts. So I want to just understand from him that what is the way forward in COP27, and to understand how really the networks of universities and networks of schools and people, especially children, the main stakeholders in education, are really envisioned to play their part, and what is the way forward for education really to come forward and do their part from here onwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramiz. Patrick, over to you. Hello, Patrick, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you get me?
Yeah, please go ahead. We can hear you.
Yes, I want to appreciate the presentation. Very, very informative, really, and a big win on the loss and damage funding. And for me, the loss and damage funding actually reminds me of Cyclone Freddy in Malawi, and how climate financing has been a bit more complex for African countries, including the seeds. Is there a discussion around around how countries or those affected, the ones that need this funding the most, are there discussions on how probably there could be simplified simplified technical measures on how people can access this climate financing, because it's really been a challenge for most African countries to access climate finance, and all this has been attributed to the complex technicalities in proposal writing and stuff like that. So is there a way in which some of these discussions are being tabled on the technicalities of proposal writing, and also just access, emergency access of some of these resources in general? Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. I can understand that the trauma of the GCF fund is still there in the mind, and Animesh, you can see that clearly. So please, let us have hope. Over to you.
Thanks, colleagues. These are very insightful questions. I think the one from Sarah from Cameroon is a very specific one to that specific country. And I've been in Cameroon many times when I was in Africa. And the challenge which I see in Cameroon is that countries that are in the lowest economic category or in the lowest vulnerability category, like if they are least developed countries or they're small island developing state, then there are many easy access to financing, and I'll come to that in answer to the third question. And Cameroon has progressed, so it's a mid-income country now in Africa. So many of the financial sources which go to which would have otherwise gone to a least developed country gets cut off as soon as it becomes a mid-income country. And this is a bit of a challenge, and we call it the challenge of graduation. By graduation, we mean a country that was in the lowest category of economic status has progressed well, but then disasters try to push it back to the low economic category. And at the same time, because it has lost funding opportunities because of losing the status as a least developed country, it is a double whammy. It's like a double-edged sword. UNDRR is the policy-centric organization, so we are not operational, so we would not be providing support on responding to a disaster. What we do is to provide the right policy support, right data and information system for the governments to work on. The challenges that you're mentioning about, I think, can be further discussed within the national platform of the country. And also the fact that there was a regional climate center established by ECAS in Cameroon, I would say it was 8 or 9 years back. And I think that should be one of the key areas which can provide such information. So I'm sure that there's some connections need to be made with the existing specialized agencies in Cameroon, and further contacts can be developed. But it needs a bit of a coordination, and we'll be happy to make the necessary connections on that. On the question from Ramiz, education and awareness, definitely, it's one of the key areas of a gap, because no matter how much we move forward in the game on policy, if the public, the citizen partnership is not ensured, we will not be able to move forward. Often I see that the climate change, and especially the loss and damage field, is often sees a lot of activism, which is very important to keep the political momentum high. But this activism needs to be backed by substance, by education and awareness. If they don't go together, it doesn't really move very far. And I think there is a real role for education. And in that context, at the school level, the concept of the Comprehensive School Safety Framework, CSSF, is very important. And a lot of work has been done, including in India, by organizations like SEEDS, for example, and others as well. And at the university level, by ensuring the network of universities that have been established. For example, in Africa, there is Peri Peri U, a very good network of universities. Then we have the Science and Tech group in Asia Pacific. And then in India, there is the Indian University Network, IUIN, which was established by the National Institute for Disaster Management. I think those are some good areas or consortia to engage with to advance this further. And once we engage as a network, we become stronger. And GNDR is a very good example where it's not just one civil society organization, but a network of organizations. And hence we become as a network, we move forward towards with the common policies and strategies. But all of these are some gaps that need to be filled up, but I think there are also opportunities. The question from Patrick, Cyclone Freddy, it's very interesting to start with, because just last week when we were having this workshop on loss and damage tracking, I reminded everyone that in the last 3 to 4 months itself, we have seen a very sudden onset disaster, which is the Turkey-Syria earthquake. And we have also seen the longest possible ever seen cyclone in the human history, which is Cyclone Freddy, which is what Patrick was pointing to. These are the challenges that we are facing from the climate change, because we cannot just predict how a hazard will behave. And if we cannot predict how a hazard will behave, what action can we take about it? And hence the access to climate finance to gear up technical resources, capacity to address is so important. I would say that the opportunities being given by the Santiago network to be able to access that basic minimum resources to enhance capacities through technical assistance is very important. That would be one. The second, GCF itself is reviewing and understanding with its new strategic framework that they have just adopted with the new executive director in place. You would see that the readiness funding can be used in a much more productive way rather than going through a very laborious process of accessing climate finance. And there are also smaller fundings like the accelerated support window of the cruise mechanism of early warning systems, which provide small resources to countries to be able to be ready to access bigger resources, because accessing bigger resources needs smaller resources. And often it's the issue of accessing the smaller resources which becomes the hurdle to access bigger resources. So I think, yes, it's a discussion which is ongoing. And there is definitely a very positive vibe in the room on the discussion. The workshop we had here in Bonn on loss and damage funding happened over a weekend, 29th and 30th of April. And there were 200 people in the room discussing exactly on the issues we are talking about, that how we can ensure easy access to financing for vulnerable communities. So I think by COP28, we already would start seeing some light on the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Animesh. We still have a lot of hands. I'm sure we cannot cover everything, but you allowed me just to ask two interveners to react, and we'll continue the program. So the first one will be Professor Johannes Bell from Southern Africa, and Miss or Mr. Dehendra Bahadur Gurun. So Dr. Bell, over to you.
Thank you very much. My question goes to Mr. Kama. It has to do with zero climate disaster. And I just want to find out with the records that we have, database like MDAT, telling us about the increasing intensity and frequency of disasters. How is this an illusion, or is this something that we can really achieve from your perspective? And then my second follow-up question almost to that is, we've always talked yes that there is no such thing as natural disasters, only natural hazards. And in fact, I haven't seen across what terminology, what topology can we give to those disasters that come as a result of natural hazards. Please, if you can assist me on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bell. Anyways, you know, we still have a lot of questions in the channel box. What I want to commit for is to copy them, to send them to you. If you can please respond by writing letter, because otherwise we'll spend the whole webinar on this topic. So I will copy them, colleagues, sorry. I will copy them, send them to Animesh, and when we'll be sharing the presentation with you, we can share those answers with you as well. Thank you for your understanding. And now, Ms. or Mr. Dehendra, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you can hear me. I am Mr., not Miss. I thank you very much for Anis for his presentation, and I understand that there is a priority on early warning, which is very important. But when we think and talk of early warning, it is also multi-hazard early warning. Yeah. So as Animesh said, that there are good decisions at the policy level, but there are problems and challenges at the local level. So when it comes to the local level, the multi-hazard early warning is a challenge. You know, it is very challenging to integrate not only the climate hazard together, but also to integrate climate hazard with other hazard like geological, this early warning. So what sort of thinkings are there at the UNDRR that how we can have this multi-hazard early warning system on the ground? Is there any concept, or is there any attempts or initial activities going on the early warning multi-hazard that integrate climate hazard with other hazards as well? Thank you.
Thanks. So let me very quickly answer in interest of time, and then I'll continue to be online for a few more minutes, and I'll try to respond to the chats and the questions. On the first question on the zero climate disasters, I think my purpose of putting that on the slide has been served because somebody asked this question, that is it possible? It's not possible, we know it, but is that a good vision to have? Is that a good ambition to have? I think so, because if somebody makes an announcement that nobody should be outside the purview of an early warning system by 2027, which is all about early warnings for all, or if we can say that there have been success stories on disaster risk reduction where like 10,000 people died of cyclone in 2019 in Bay of Bengal, and a cyclone of the same intensity killed less than 100 people in 2019. So from 1999 to 2019, a decline of 10,000 people shows that something has been done by which mortality has been almost reduced to a minimum. If I look at the global level, the per 100,000 mortality because of disaster has declined from 1.84 to 0.86, which is halving. Half of the people are dying as of now. Can we reduce it to zero? It's impossible, perhaps, but let's move towards that. It's a vision. It's an ambitious statement to make so that at least we reach halfway. Even if we reach halfway of that, the world is much more resilient than what it is now. In terms of the terminology, we have a whole campaign on Twitter, which we are not running. It's run by stakeholders like yourself, called hashtag no natural disaster. And the reason why is that when we say natural disaster, we leave it to somebody like God saying, oh, it's going to happen, and the only thing we can do is to prepare and respond to it. When we say no natural disaster, we say there's nothing natural about it, because it's always a governance, a human failure when some disaster strikes and we can do something about it. The correct terminology that we use is natural hazard induced disaster or disaster resulting from natural hazard. And it could be disaster resulting from biological hazard, disaster resulting from environmental hazard. But that's a Sendai terminology, which is the correct one to use. Next question very quickly on the early warnings for all. The key challenge we face, we are seeing, and this is something which I documented in the report on early warning last year, is that I think we have done pretty well in the last 30, 40 years to collect the right information, put it in a black box that processes that information. But when it comes to the backflow of that information back to the communities, that's where the challenge lies. It's a last mile outreach of early warning system, which is a bit of a challenge, which is where all of you come in. The second part of the question was the integration of different hazards. There are two elements of it again. One is that we cannot just look at one or two or three specific hazards because of our understanding. We need to conduct a thorough risk assessment at the local level, which is where loss and damage tracking systems that we are trying to establish will be very helpful to understand what are those specific 5 or 6, 10 hazards that happen at the local level, and hence the early warning systems can track those hazards to issue the warning. But the other part of the same story is which hazard will result in what? What is the cascading nature of the hazard? So for example, will a tropical depression for which a warning has been issued will result in a tidal wave, which will result in a flash flood, which will result in landslides, which will result in the longer term in structural collapse. And on the other hand, flood might result in cholera and other waterborne diseases. This is a chain of different hazards, which are the result of the same triggering effect. Unfortunately, our early warning systems are geared towards tracking the first 1 or 2 hazards and not the subsequent hazards that actually take place. And hence our early warning systems need to become much more comprehensive to ensure the full chain of reaction need to be addressed. And this could include both climatic and non-climatic disasters. So we don't need to make a special distinction between the two. And I can go in much greater detail on the second part on climate versus non-climate. I don't think we have time. We need a webinar only on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Animesh. And thanks for this very elaborated presentation. I know you can have the whole day. Yeah, but let us move on. I'm really happy that you are sitting a bit with us. So you will now be hearing what we've done. So not in terms of GNDR, but mainly where we are coming from Glasgow to Sharm el-Sheikh, what has happened and where we see ourselves in the coming time. So I'm just going to start my presentation, and hopefully after that you can share your thoughts very quickly before you. Yeah, thank you again for the time, and yeah, let us try. It's quite difficult to come after an expert as Animesh, but allow me to just come very quickly with the context, just to refresh our members where we are coming from. So my presentation is in French, but I will be speaking English, hopefully, to help our French-speaking colleagues to feel also in the global move. So remember, the Paris Agreement raised the issue concerning the temperature and saying that we need to have a global temperature that should be less than 2 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrial period. Otherwise, we are in danger. And the main target in the Paris Agreement was 1.5, and I'm talking about 2015 by now. After that, we got the report of the IPCC the last year. So the working group, the work group 2 has partially published its report, and it comes with a high confidence that every global warming beyond 1.5 can be extremely catastrophic with some irreversible impact to the human being, and also will aggravate the involvement of human rights issue. So early this year, we got the final report of the same institution, the IPCC, that said that the policies and the rules in place in terms of mitigation have evolved a lot compared to the last reports, and the global emission of the greenhouse gases in 2030, as they are planned in the NDCs, the nationally determined contribution, and announced in October of the last year of 2021, are making highly probable the global warming to 1.5 during this last century, and are making very, very difficult the limitation of the global warming to 2 degrees Celsius. So this is, when the IPCC said this is with high confidence, it means we are almost there, because we know that these people, as they are high-level scientists, they are very careful of their language. But if they reach the level to say this is with high confidence, it means we are probably beyond that situation, I may say. And I'm saying this as a civil society organization, of course. So what are the irreversible impacts of the climate change? So we can mention, for example, the sea level rise, the flood of small islands and other coastal regions in the world, the loss of ecosystem, especially the coastal ecosystem, and the means of life of coastal communities. Food security is threatened, and we are counting a lot of loss of life because of the increase of the heat. And believe me, actually, I'm calling from Togo, And don't ask me what the weather looks like. It's actually 33, and in my room, it's extremely hot. This is also the report of the work group, the working group 2 of the IPCC. The loss and damage are the main consequence of human and natural phenomenon that are increasing the intensity and the level of hydrometeorological extreme events. This is not from me, this is always from the IPCC. The cause of the loss and damage, you know, as Animesh said this before, it's not possible to really estimate the cause of loss and damage today, but according to the loss and damage collaboration, which is a civil society group, they are estimating up to 1,700 billion the cause of loss and damage by 2050, sorry. Now, there are some concepts, maybe we will not need to go through this, though Animesh talk about education, schooling, developing competencies on the loss and damage. You can see that there are some key concepts that are extremely important to be taken into consideration. I will just mention the loss and damage that is referred to the manifestation of real and potential impacts associated to climate change. So the loss I identify as impacts that are not possible to repair, while the damage are, or they are called in French as préjudice. So they are seen as something that can be repaired, but the cost can be extremely high. Technically, it's important to understand the loss and damage as the impact of climate phenomenon, non-absorbed either by neither by mitigation nor by adaptation, and this reparation, if possible, costs also a lot of life and livelihood. You can very quickly see some pictures that I've cropped from different places. So the picture at the left, at the bottom, at the left side is from Lomé. This is the coast of Togo. So you can see this wall. This is like a wall. It means there was a house here, and because of the sea level rise, now all these houses have disappeared, and the wall is almost in the sea. And I'm sure up to now it will be already in the sea. And there are more walls like this in the sea, actually, around the coast of Lomé. For those who know, for the picture where you can see the ships, this happened in Senegal with a serious and severe flood. People have lost their animals. You can see also Americans are experiencing their part of the problem with the corn beds experiencing a kind of drying situation. And the picture with the flood is from Niger. That is seen as Sahel zone. You can see how they're experiencing flood situation. Legally, institutionally, at the COP28 in year 2013, I would say, we adopted the Varso mechanism. So the Varso mechanism lead to deal with the loss and damage associated to impact of climate change, including the extreme events and slow onset events that are getting developed. And this is a decision made by the COP in Varso in 2013. At the Paris COP in 2015, the Paris Agreement was adopted, and the Article 8 of that agreement recognized the importance of the loss and damage and the need to deal with that. But as Animesh said, it was led, at that time, it was activist issue because there was no deep research on that aspect. But up to now, the interest has grown, and we were all impressed the way loss and damage from Glasgow to Sharm el-Sheikh has almost become the main topic of the negotiations. In at the COP25 in Madrid, there was the Santiago network on loss and damage that was created, and it was created in order to avoid minimize to avoid the mistreatment of the issue related to loss and damage, and to provide a technical assistance to the VARSO mechanism that I talked about earlier. At the COP 26 in 2020, it was admitted in Glasgow, loss and damage came to the legal and formal agenda of the COP at Glasgow. So this is historically where we come from in terms of a process. And I'm insisting on this because, again, our entry point as DRI actors, our entry point to the climate space, the climate negotiation is loss and damage. So in Glasgow, to Sharm el-Sheikh, what has happened? At the COP26, as we said, the topic related to loss and damage has been really pushed. And what we call the Pact of Glasgow, or the Dialogue of Glasgow, is put at the top priority of the presidents, the presidents of the COP of Egypt. There was also the dialogue of 2 years dialogue from 2022 to 2024 on the modalities of funding and the mechanism of facility that has been requested by the most vulnerable countries during the COP of Glasgow. There was also the operationalization of the Santiago network to avoid, again, as I say, minimizing and remediating, I would say, the loss and damage due to effects of climate change. And finally, the institutional arrangement of the Santiago network will be discussed in how do you call it, in Sharm el-Sheikh, and the debate continue. And as I mentioned, on the 15th of March 2022, the debates have evolved, and a lot of achievements have been noticed after the meeting of March 2022. Also, it's important to mention that there was a reinforcement of the global agenda on the loss and damage, with the symbolic engagement of some countries, Scotch government, Wallonie, and German, who have tried to mobilize during the Glasgow COP more than 10 million of euros for the foundation, for the philanthropic foundation. And also there was an urgent intensification of the action and support on the way the loss and damage will be dealt in terms of funding, in terms of transfer of technology, and in terms of capacity building. What were the main challenge of FAM? I think Animesh has raised them very well. So the loss and damage are increasing and are more visible. The intensification of the parties and the measure, specific measure to deal with loss and damage, to put in place some national mechanism that consists to deal with the topic. Also the issue of compensation of the loss and damage was pending. So some countries, I know before the COP, some developed countries were really careful of the topic simply because of the uncertainties when this is adopted, what will be the consequence. And one of the most feared consequence was the compensation issue. But there was also some institutional arrangement of the Santiago network. So people talk about the operationalization modalities and the management modalities of the secretariat. So again, remember, UNDR hopefully is going to host the secretariat of that institutions, if of course appointed by the decision makers. So at the COP27, what has happened? Before the COP27, GNDR has prepared a call called the Sharm el-Sheikh call with 10 points. And we have tried to send a letter to 125 countries, negotiators on the importance to find a very suitable solution on the issue of loss and damage. You can see I've copied some pictures summarizing a bit what we've done. So we joined some side events. We organized side event ourselves. We joined some partners as Benelux. You can see some colleagues in the Canadian pavilion trying to push for the same topic, loss and damage, inclusion of the local communities, funding the local initiative. And I quote, you know, during the presentation of Animesh, I quote one of the member who said, allow me to see what he said. He said, can I find it? Yes, I'm sure. Unless we advance the localization agenda, I fear loss and damage fund will not reach locally operating NGOs any more than the current minimal amount. So this is said by Ben Smitovic. I hope he's still here and he's following us. Thank you, Ben, for that reflection. So some of the outcome of the Sharm el-Sheikh COP, as Animesh said, the Secretariat is going to be hosted by UN or non-UN entities, and I know two entities are in the competition actually. The consultative council that will be responsible to supervise the Secretariat is supposed to be put in place. The network itself has to be very functional with a very pertinent topic to avoid, again, minimize and treat the loss and damage on the right way. We also have some commitment from some countries, including Austria, Scotland, you know, the UK government, German government, Belgium government, and more. So some have targeted some specific countries, including Mozambique. These are the outcome, the direct outcome of the pressure, we say, or the influence we put on these decision makers. Also, we note what we call the global shield that was launched at the COP27 by the V20 understand vulnerable 20 vulnerable countries and the G7 in order to protect the poorest countries and against climate change. Also, we can mention the establishments of new funding mechanisms to support the least developed countries, particularly the most vulnerable to climate change, to deal with loss and damage and climate change impact. In conclusion and recommendation, I'll say the decision of COP cannot be implemented at the highest level. They can be only implemented at the national level. And if we want the loss and damage topic to be really considered, we first of all need to continue to push our government, our national government, to review the nationally determined contribution as they are now. They are not really including the loss and damage issue. So if we want to receive the fund for loss and damage, you need to prove that you are vulnerable of loss and damage. And to demonstrate that this, we need to see the loss and damage topic in our nationally determined contribution. Also, the countries that agree to fund the negative impacts of climate change should find a strong and coherent point between adaptation and mitigation to make sure that the resources are accessible in both, department, I would say, to avoid privileging or prioritizing mitigation against adaptation or vice versa. So very quickly, I hope I was really quick. These are some of the elements I've caught and I want to share with you. Your reflection and your question are more than welcome. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I am the moderator. Okay, sorry, I forget that. So these are the very quick presentation I tried to prepare for you. I don't know if you have any comment, if any hand is raised. I can see any hand. which is something good, to be sincere. And if there is no hand, then maybe I will, okay, I can see, let me see who is here. Sorry, this technology is not mine. Okay, I can see again, Dr. Bell. Dr. Bell, over to you.
Thank you very much, moderator. And mine is more of a comment. I just want to appreciate the work that GNDR and other civil society organizations put in the area of loss and damage being taken seriously in Egypt and the commitment that has been made. I think one thing that we need to really focus on now is to make sure that the funding arrangement that has been made for loss and damage, like somebody rightly mentioned in the quote that you made, reach the grassroots, because I think that is where we have a lot of challenges. And I think part of this challenge may be solved if civil societies, which are at the front lines stage of executing the loss and damages in the local community, can really empower the most at-risk community to see exactly how these funds can be accessed and reach the grassroots. So I think that is my comment. If there is something that we should push for the next coming COP, I think COP28, it should be how we should really make sure that the funding that have been pledged reach the grassroots. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bell. And this is one of the areas where GNDR is really pushing to make sure that the resources are accessible at the local level and the transformative solutions are implementable on the ground. Thank you for insisting on this. I can see in the comments, Rashid Mohammed asked what is being done to include local communities' voice and most vulnerable to be part of the mainstream discussion on loss and damage. Yeah, that's a good question, definitely. And for us at GNDR, for example, at the COP, the last COP of Sharm el-Sheikh, we try to, apart from collecting all our call to action was the ideas we got from the members. So it was members-led initiative. But beyond that, we also try to make sure that we go to Sharm el-Sheikh with some local communities who can directly express the challenge they are facing. And we were there with 2 local community members who really share with the participants their experience, and it was really appreciated. So this is where we can really share our added value. But also we expect that with that presentation that the members and the local communities have done, it will change the understanding of the decision makers and probably take into consideration some of our requests. Thank you, Mr. Rashid Mohammed, for the question. Yeah, because of time, if you don't mind, I still have 2 hands. So the 2 last hands, Kazi, Babi, and Kenneth, Amwateng. So over to you, Kazi.
Okay, so mine is quick 2-1. Last year we have a goodwill on loss and damage, and how do we still maintain it? It became a topic for global. The next question will be in terms of using local language to communicate to local farmers. How best can we build the capacity of those people? The last one, it's about the UN. I know the UN General Secretary promised that they are going to give money for investment into loss and damage. How do we time and give timing results? Is there any update on that? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Kazi, can you come in? Hello, Kazi Baby, can you please have the floor? We can't hear Kazi. Kazi, the time for you to join. Thanks, Kenneth, for your question. So the topic, yeah, as you said, the momentum was very high at Sharm el-Sheikh, and this is exactly why we have started earlier this year to make sure that we mobilize all these actors, those who can make it to the next COP, just to make sure that we need to push. Now we've gained something in Sharm el-Sheikh. We were successful. We got the mechanism in place. Now we need to keep our eyes on what is going on and go with some concrete examples, some evidence from the ground to tell people we need to accelerate the fund. That's the only way I think we can push people. And again, let us tell ourselves the truth. We are not UN institution. We are civil society organization, and we need to keep that capacity to really push a bit and come with some concrete evidence from the ground to shift, the narrative. So again, the ball is in our camp. We need to go back to the ground to collect some evidence and come with some strong evidence to let these people understand that yes, the mechanism is there. Now the fund needs to be accelerated, and the fund needs to be accessible to the frontliners. That's my thought. Coming to the fund, I know when the UN Secretary General declares something, then for sure all the departments of the UN are very active. And as Animesh said in his presentation, there is an initiative called the Early Warning for All, and the program is born in Africa as well. So I know by June, the first meeting to have a work plan will be there. Once we hear more, once we know more about it, we can organize some consultation with the civil society organization to make sure that we invade the space with the voice of the civil society organization, and that we are capable to really go with some concrete ideas and example that can really help to change again the narrative on the ground. Yeah, okay, so because of the time, okay, Kofi, I can see your hand. That will be the last intervention, and colleagues are very, very busy. Sophie will come in for sure, and we'll continue. So Kofi, over to you.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate the presentation. You point out the context and also the key element that we have to keep. But regarding your recommendation, I really want to know if from now we have a planning or action plan to know that what are the key points on which GNDR with all the civil society organizations are focusing on, and also what they are going to run as activity during the next COP. The focus for me.
Yeah, thank you. Good question again. There is another communication about that. We'll share our agenda, and of course, all the colleagues can feed that agenda at the right time. I'm really sorry. I know colleagues are very, very busy. I'm very cognizant of your gratitude and your commitment. So allow me to invite very quickly Sophie. Sophie is a board member of GNDR, or was at the COP. She will share very quickly her experience at the COP, and if possible, then after him, Emmanuel will come and share the reflection from the GNDR members on the topic. So allow me to invite Sophie for her message and her, yeah.
Thank
Sophie,
you, Adesi. Yes, can you hear me all right? Can I just check?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hear you.
Great. Hi, everyone. Apologies, I'm sort of joining this call about halfway through. I'm also in the middle of a workshop at the same time. So hopefully my intervention will build on the previous ones, and apologies, I very much wanted to join the whole call. Also, I mean, I'll try and turn my camera on for a quick second to say hello. I don't know if you can see me. I'm in a back room away from where I'm meant to be. I'm going to turn my camera off because I'm just on my phone. But just for those that don't know me, I'm the head of policy for climate and humanitarian at ActionAid. I'm also on the board of GNDR, as Adesu said, and I'm also director of the Climate Action Network UK. So I just wanted to take the time to say a couple of comments, building on, but hopefully not repeating in any way what Adesu has already said, and his key comments around sort of loss and damage and localization, clearly key areas for us to be involved in as GNDR. But just first to take a quick step back and look at the wider sort of context. And I think it's really important to note the increasing merge between climate change and disaster risk reduction. And whilst for many of you, this the overlap between the two has been very clear on the ground for years, and the distinction is not made through your programs necessarily so much. It's not so siloed. These interventions and the impacts for the communities on the ground, they don't necessarily distinguish between the one or the other. That's not necessarily been the case at the international and national policy level, but we are now seeing an increased recognition at that level of the importance of the overlap between climate change and disaster risk reduction. So what does this mean? This means that at the national level, we're seeing more integration of national determined contributions with national DRR plans. And then at the international level, we're seeing an increased collaboration and cooperation between the UNFCCC and UNDRR with engagement around the alignment of frameworks. And we're seeing this with, for example, at the moment, the COP process has got the important global stock take happening this year, and that will very much see how we can link that to the work going on with the Sendai framework. So what does that mean for us? It means that it's a really good time to engage at the intersection of these areas, as already highlighted by Adesu and others on the call. Loss and damage and localization is a key area where the overlap is clear, but also that all of you as members of GNDR and that GNDR itself brings a hugely valuable perspective of really bringing in that DRR approach, and that the climate change space can really learn from that. So it's a great time to engage, and I think there's a lot to shape, and this space will grow. The overlap space between the two areas will grow. So then just moving on, if that's the wider sort of policy context, what is the context of the COP? I mean, as has been alluded to, and as many of you will know, the COP is an incredibly complex space. It's many platforms in one. It's a policy global governance space, but it's also a partnership and networking space, a learning space, a media space. And all of this is sort of complexified year on year. With global governance, also the global governance side of it getting very complex. Adesu spoke about many different initiatives under the loss and damage agenda alone, but there are numerous agendas under the COP process. So it's hugely sort of complex. We also have more and more observers attending, and a very diverse observer group. So we have lots of civil society, all coming with different perspectives, but we also have private sector and many others. These are organized into sort of 9 constituency groups, and then we also have informal groups. And these constituencies are really important because they help channel and organize, and so channel civil society as input and perspectives directly into the sort of negotiations and support influencing. So there is a good way by engaging with these constituencies to be able to engage directly with UNFCCC, to make submissions on key issues around loss and damage and others. It's also important to note that there's been lots of calls recently for reform of the COPs, and it's a recognition that the COP process has become too complex, that there are too many people involved, and that it's moved away from the core sort of rationale of the COP, which was to achieve the objectives of the convention, to achieve the Paris Agreement, and to really be focused on delivering outcomes. And there's been a push to move some of the sort of sideshow that takes place at the COPs to regional climate weeks. So I think it's important to be aware of that complexity and those conversations that are going on. So given these two sort of layers of context, what does this mean for GNDR and its members? So firstly, I think it means that you really need to cut through the noise. So this means you've got to be specific about the aims of engaging in this space and attending COPs, and specific about the ask. So we need to develop this well in advance and leverage the power of the GNDR network, but also work with constituencies to do that. And these can be, the specific asks could be around the overlap of the space between DRR and COP, or it could be around loss and damage and localization, but to really focus in on something specific that you want from the policy and governance side of COP to be able to cut through that noise. So that's the first sort of, I think, key, one of my key reflections. The second key reflection would be around not just thinking international. These regional climate weeks are really good weeks for people to engage, to be able to sort of learn from different perspectives that you have, to share learnings, to build partnerships. And, you know, they can be in many ways more relevant to national, local context. So just not always think that COP is the best place. It kind of depends on what you want to get out of it, and that those regional climate weeks can also be really key for your objectives. I think my third sort of reflection would be to work with allies and constituencies. So in particular, that's those sort of 9 constituencies of which the Climate Action Network co-leads one of them, which is ENGO, which is the environmental NGOs. So engage with them and influence the CAN space as well. You know, push the CAN space to be thinking more about disaster risk reduction and that sort of key risk-informed approach. And you can engage as individual members, as if you're part of CAN, or also as GNDR, and leverage that power of the group. And then my last reflection would be around to collaborate with UNDRR. There's clearly a huge added value through GNDR and common areas of interest, and they have institutional channels to be able to influence that are, you know, hugely valuable and can really help promote your views and perspectives, as you all, I'm sure, are already aware. So I will leave it there, Adesu, and hand back to you. I'm very sorry, I do need to jump off the call now, but very happy to pick up any questions, and we'll be keen to hear how the rest of the call went when I see you next week, Adesu. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Thanks for the patience and for the time. I understand. Yeah, we have got some comments in the group. Yeah, okay, so these are some general questions. I don't know if you have any comments. Otherwise, Emmanuel is also on rush. If you allow me, Sophie, maybe I will invite directly Emmanuel, as I can't see any hand raised. Sorry if I missed.
That's great, thank you. If questions come later, please feel free to pass them on to me. And thank you very much, everyone, for letting me have the time to speak. And yeah, I will sign off now, but thank you, Adesu. Bye.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Thank you. Emmanuel, I'm sorry. I know you are on board. Very quickly, if you can open your mic and share your reflection as GNDR members and also as an expert in the negotiations.
Yes, thank you very much, Ades. You know that I'm organizing a training workshop for the LDC's countries, particularly the African. So I miss my lunch, but it's because that the event you're organizing is for me a very relevant one. Relevant in a way that we have to enhance the understanding related to the loss and damage and how it is linked with the work we are doing in GNDR. These are parts of the objectives of the Warsaw International Mechanism. So just to introduce myself, whilst talking about the issues, my name is Emmanuel Sepp, for those who don't know me. I'm acting now as the director of ENDA Department of Energy, and I'm part of the expert group of action, of supported action related to the WIM. I'm negotiating on loss and damage, climate, finance, and adaptation. So I said that the event you organize is a really relevant one, and I would like to congratulate GNDR for hosting it. And so to have also GNDR within the process, because I remember when we were discussing in the board, and with your commitment also, Adesu, to have GNDR as a member of Climate Action Network International to be part of the UNFCCC. It was really a very relevant and important also decision to take. So I think the previous speaker talk about the difference that we have to make between the loss and damage that are from slow onset event or climate change issues. I mean, the slow onset event, if you look at that in some countries, it's related to sea level rise, to temperature rise, to desertification, to land degradation, to loss of biodiversity. It is important. And we have the sudden event that are related to some meteorological hazard, that are related to hydrological hazard, that are related also to geophysical hazard. So if this is made, it will avoid the confusion that we are having within the UNFCCC process, where some of the protagonists or the countries or parties say that they are supporting humanitarian. Humanitarian means many things. I mean, all disasters that we are dealing with, particularly in the Sandai framework. Yes, indeed, it is important that we try to enhance the synergy amongst the different framework, particularly the Sandai framework and the UNFCCC and even other framework like the UNCCD, the Convention to Combat Desertification. But it is important to know that there are some questions or issues that we are dealing with which are not related to climate change. And here, why I'm focusing on climate change is because the fund or the mechanism that we are trying to set up will only finance issues that are related to climate change. And for those who are saying that they are supporting humanitarian, they have to clarify if they are supporting, when a disaster comes, what they are supporting is related to climate change. If not, we will miss the mission, our mission in terms of helping communities to cope or to deal with a disaster when it is related, for example, to coastal erosion, salinization or intrusion of salt within the land. So I think GNDR have a lot to share, particularly when we were talking about the Santiago network. The Santiago network is a network which is open to all expertise, particularly the networks, and GNDR is one of them. In the introduction of or one intervention, the speaker talked about the role that the UNDR may play with the UNOPS or UNDP. And I think partnering with GNDR, we really could reach many things within this process. In terms of knowledge, and information, so people are asking for some case studies. I know that GNDR have some information to capitalize with the view from the front line and other projects that you are implementing in the field. Please document all this information and share it at the global level, because it may serve as good cases to deal with the loss and damage. It is no new issues, and the solution are already there in the field. It is just the name which change, or the name of concept, but often the solution are already found or given by the communities. We have to value, to document all this, and to share it at the international level through different platforms, through side event and other. It is requested to the countries, particularly to assess the loss and damage within at the community level and at the national level. I didn't see enough evidence or information coming from the countries. because at the end, what will be the request is, yes, if you are requiring for funds, how do you assess the needs in terms of loss and damage? So we as ENDA, what we were doing, so we made some publication, particularly on the slow onset event, and focus now at the community level on the issue related to displacement first, and also the cost on non-economic loss, to identify the different non-economic loss and how these non-economic loss was taken or considered at the local level and even the national level. Who supports the communities in terms of these issues, and what are the limits on which we could build for reparation or helping communities to really build their resilience? Because if we don't have enough resources, enough funds to allow communities to cope with, this will undermine really the resilience. So to be short, based on the contribution or the presentation you have made, what I had to share with the audience, and I'm sorry, but I will not, I could not stay longer. I'm sorry. That's why also I didn't structure enough well the contribution that I have made. But I thank you for the opportunities you give to us to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Thanks so much for staying, for deciding to really share these very valuable reflections. I can see some comments, a lot of thanks from the members, a lot of recognition from the members, but no question. I really and deeply want to express my recognition for your time. I know what it means, and I know this is an expression of your commitment and your engagement for GNDR. Thank you so much. I will not keep you longer than you've already done. Enjoy the rest of the session over there, and please continue to fast. It will be helpful for sure. Otherwise, it will be a disaster. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye bye. I know. Yes, vous pouvez l'avoir. Vous pouvez avoir l'email d'Emmanuel après. Now, let us follow the agenda.
Obtenir les livres.
Pardon? Okay, let me follow. Now we've finished with Emmanuel, to whom we are very thankful. Now I will invite Marcos in the middle of the debate to take on and try to collect from the members from different perspectives what has been done. So Marcos, if you feel comfortable, happy to support with this, please welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Adesu. Again, can you hear me well? Yeah, great. So thank you also to Emmanuel, to Sophie, and of course to Animesh for their contributions. Again, if you have any other question or any other concern that you think that any of them, Animesh or Sophie or Adesu or Emmanuel could address, just let us know, and we will do our best. This last part of the agenda is about looking at the future, looking forward. But before, I just wanted to mention what we have done so far in terms of preparing COP28, and what we did weeks ago, I think couple months ago, as our members requested, we sent an open letter to Mr. Simon Steele as Executive Secretary of UNFCCC. I said, following the mandate of our members to express our deep concern about the increasing cost of attending to COP meetings. This has been an issue in COP26, COP27, and definitely COP is getting affordable for civil society organizations and significantly contributing to the exclusion of civil society organizations and those on the front line in the front line. So we insisted and we keep insisting on the right of the civil society to be meaningfully included on this forum on negotiations and the importance of taking an all of society approach in decision making. That's what we reflected in our letter to Mr. Steele. Also insisting or highlighting the relevance of connecting the global decision makers to local realities. That was the idea of the letter. That was the mandate of our members. So we urged the executive secretary to act on this and work closely with the host government to cap the escalating cost of accommodation and other expenses to attend the COP meetings, and specifically this year's meeting. So great news that we had the response from UNFCCC directly from the executive secretary, committing to make it more affordable, which we will hold to account for. We will follow up this situation to keep insisting to Mr. Steele on the need of including and making affordable the COP for civil society organizations. We've been also working on the roadmap to COP28. So I think you can explain to our colleagues what are the next steps and what are the plans. Thank you. Over to you. You're mute.
Thank you so much, Marcos, for the introduction. Yes, as you say, we've started preparing a plan for the coming period, and I will allow me to share again my screen with you to share with you what we have in hand now. A minute, please. Then you can have a look and share your reflection on it if you think it meets your expectation or not, because this is supposed to belong to you, not to the Secretariat of GNDR. So feel free to amend it, and from there we can start working with that. So I hope you can see my screen now. And yeah, so today you can see the 11th of May, we are having this COP brief. You know that in GNDR we had a group that we call the climate experts before. So the reflection is to move from the expert group to a working group. So we are now opening the climate working group, where we expect we can meet at the end of each month to reflect on the main, the intel of the global debate on climate change, what is going on, what is happening, how is that affecting the DRR, or how can the DRR actors contribute to the global movement. So we propose to keep this. So you can see the 29th of this month, we think we can have the first working group. And you can see all this band. So the fourth week of each month, we plan to have that meeting. Apart from that, on the 13th, no, this is another working group. So we want to start earlier the elaboration of our position paper. So for those who remember the last year, we come to all our members, we ask them what are the main ideas they think GNDR should consider when preparing our work plan, our policy paper. And we collect the ideas from the members, then we prepare the first draft that we submit to the climate experts group and then to the members. And that was the process, it was done on regular consultation till we finally adopt the 10 points that we brought to the COP as the position of GNDR. As Animation has announced, there are some coming events, including the African Climate Week, and this will happen in September. So again, we think we will cover that space. We'll submit some concept notes for side events, but also we'll participate with other partners to see how we can really influence the sector. And those who are planning to join those events, please let us know. We'll be grateful to really collaborate with you together and work with you to see how we can globally influence this space and make sure that the topic related to what we are talking of here are quite ahead. We also expect that we can join the Dubai COP, so the COP28 this year, and have some work with the presidency to make sure that we can also influence the sector. Hopefully, as Animation has announced, we have the midterm review of the Sender framework the next week in New York. And in case we are able to join that event, we will also try to have some event with the presidency of the COP, Mr. Haleb, to start reflecting and position GNDR as an important actors on the loss and damage and broadly on the reduction of the vulnerability of local communities. So without wanting to go into details, these are the main activities we've scheduled for this year. I'm happy to share this with you, but we also would like to hear from you to see what you think about the idea to shift from the climate expert to the climate working group. How do you see that? We are a network of 100 and almost 500, 1,500 members now. Is that something you really think we need to do? Are you ready to support this initiative? Because again, remember, the Secretariat can initiate, but this needs to be led by the members because GNDR remains a member-led network. So yeah, these are some of the questions I would like to hear from you very quickly, if you think this is the right way to go. If not, then please let us know, and we are happy to review our position. Thank you. Marco, so these are some of the points I have. I don't know if any member, if there is any hand. Okay, we have, I think we have Lawrence. Lawrence has raised his hand.
Yeah, how are you, sir?
Thank you, we are good.
Yeah, actually, I'm a stranger in this platform. Actually, I've been a member of another network that is working on the FCPF, the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility. But then sometime last year or early year before last, I joined the global disaster stuff in Liberia. But what interests me is I just saw your outline, and I think one way, with a large number of people and with the input that some of us want to make, it might be a little bit difficult if the network at the level of the country is not fully being represented. I don't know. I'm not speaking as if I am a spokesperson, but I was speaking as would it be a good idea that contact or coordinations start making some little initiative at the level of the secretarial, and that could also help to boost some of the membership moving from each country to some of these meetings. I think this could be a very good idea where we could maybe make our annual due payment could be a minimum, and then maybe that money can also help to get some members out there for experience sharing and knowledge exchange programs. So quite frankly, your outline is good, but how do people register for some of these things like the Climate Network? I could make some input because I've been in a number of meetings across the globe, so maybe my input could be good. I just thought that we need to open up and make some people more responsible, so at least we can make sure that people who are present can make an impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lawrence. Yeah, that's a very valid point that we welcome warmly. It's also important to mention that in the Asia Pacific, also there are some climate. So the climate with a regional event, they will happen in all the regions. I'm not sure about the dates in Asia Pacific yet, but all this must happen before the COP and should fit the COP agenda. So we are happy to share the information as we get them. Yeah, Lawrence, we are really aware that sometimes members don't have the information, and we share as we can, we share as we have. To be sincere, this event related to the African climate, all this information have been shared before, but I understand that we are receiving a lot of email and we may not be capable to read all of them, so we are happy to share them again. But also, I want to encourage the members to time check on the UNFCCC website. You have all the information related to climate change, at least the global and sometimes the regional one, advertised there. You can find more information there. But to be sincere, we agree. We are aware of sometimes the difficulties, and we are happy to support. Of course, financially, we are not yet there. You know how heavy it is, but we can provide some technical advice and connect, if possible, people with organizers to facilitate whatever we should facilitate for our members to join all the meeting. Mr. Law, yeah, we need to prepare the position paper on loss and damage, gender and forest. We will open, this is exactly why we are talking about the working group. So we'll open the debate as soon as possible. You feel free to feed the debate with all your ideas. Generally, what is interesting is these ideas cross-cut. We really try to summarize them and to make sure that we take into consideration all the points of our members, if not most of them, to make sure that our position paper is not something coming from the Secretariat, but is representing the view of the members. And this is what we stand for. So thanks for these ideas. We take notes. We quote them very quickly, but at the right time, feel free to join and to share your ideas. I can see in the chat box that a lot of people support the idea of the working group. Thank you for your support. We'll work on it and come back to you very, very quickly to formalize it and to institutionalize it as one of the key events of GNDR, and we hope you will really support. So in case you already have some ideas on what can the debate look like, how can it be oriented, please, if you are happy to really lead this group and push the Secretariat a bit back, we'll be really, really happy to see you leading the process. Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, happy to continue the collaboration with you.
I think, Ares, we have one last hand raise. Come, Lavi.
Okay, please, I can see all the hands, but go ahead. Open your mic and have the floor, please.
Ok, bonsoir tout le monde. Good morning, good afternoon. I hope that everybody is well. I am delighted to listen to you, my mentor, Adesu. We have been working together since 2015. It's thanks to him that I was involved with GNDR. In 2015, we initiated together a workshop on recommendations and on work on negotiations. At the time, we wanted to identify risk areas, areas that was facing risks, so that we can include the risks at a national level also. From 2016, just for your information, I am a Togo association, which is ADAF, which focuses on alternative sustainable development for Africa. For a long time now, since 2011, I don't know if you know Lomé at all in our country, but we've been having a huge problem on our coastal areas. We have erosion on our coasts, and well, how shall I put it? We are facing a natural disaster because the erosion has cost many lives on the coast. And we are noticing today that we have had many houses destroyed. People are moving away from the coast, which led us to have an advocacy campaign and to present this to the decision makers. And we have created a document, and we noticed loss and damage. Therefore, I want to know what GNDR can do for us as an international network, as a strong international network. What can GNDR do for us? Because since 2019, 20, when we were drafting advocacy campaign, we put forward several recommendations. And previously to 2019, there was no law protecting the coasts. And in our recommendations, which we sent to the Togo Parliament, and that led to a new law being voted in. Today, we have a law that protects the coast, but we need to focus on strengthening resilience of the victims. This is essential. We want for the state to compensate for victims who live on the coast. However, this is difficult for us because since 2021, we haven't found enough momentum at the decision-making levels. And I can see in the chat that many people said that we needed to work in synergy so that when the COP happens, we can act at the COP itself, but elsewhere also. We should find a place, and we need to make sure that the victims that live on the coast find a satisfactory solution. We know about the leave no one behind principle. Well, I wish that GNDR supports us. We are civil society actors, and we are trying to help these victims on the coast. So please, I am asking GNDR to come and support us. Thank you.
You're mute. This one.
Oh, sorry. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Kamavi, pour ce cas pratique que vous venez de partager, je crois que
Thank you very much for this practical example. This is a huge need, but when we talk about GNDR, we talk about members first and foremost. I know that you're talking about GNDR, but you are GNDR. So for Togo, you need to see what the Togo SCOs can do to share the voices of the victims. I will leave the floor to Marcos because he raised his hand, and then we will come back to the last points at the agenda.
Okay, so we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that was my bad. Sorry, that was my point. We have just 5 minutes left. So to go to the next point, and of course, I just wanted to thank also in last intervention, but please, Aminata.
Thank you, Marcos. Hi, everyone. So we have a very limited time, so I'm afraid that we are not going to have this session as interactive as we have planned it, so it's going to be very short. So now that you have all the background information around this important event for GNDR and the sector, now we want to know the members who will participate to the COP and those who would like to join the climate working group, and of course collect all your different point of views and policy messages you would like us to include in the policy paper. I'm going to share very quickly my screen and also share a link to a Google form so that you can continue to provide your answers there. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Can you come? Perfect. So here we have 4 main questions. So first, we would like to know the members who will attend the COP. So for this question, I'm going to put the link in the chat box, and then for you to provide all the required information. And also, if you are planning to attend the COP, we would like to know what kind of event you will see GNDR organize. And the third question is about the climate working group. So as Adesu explained in his previous presentation, we are setting up a climate working group with the members, and would like to know it would be good to know who wish to be part of this group. So you can provide, as I said, the information through the link I'll share very shortly. And then the last message is about, the last question, is about the policy messages. So in case you have anything in mind, anything in terms of policy messages you would like GNDR to include in the policy paper for the COP, so please feel free to share those with us. Let me share very quickly the link. Sorry, we have a very limited time, just 2 minutes to go, so apologies for. So yeah, there you are. You have the links. Sorry, the link to the Google form. So continue, provide your answers there, and we'll be happy to collect all your perspectives and consider them while preparing the COP. Yeah, thank you, Adesu. It was very quick. Sorry. And over to you to wrap up and end of the session. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Aminata. Thanks a lot, Adesu, for leading the webinar. It's been great to see more than 100 people at some moments in this webinar, and it is quite clear that there is a lot of interest. So the idea is to keep working together on this. We need to take your voice to COP. We need to go together to COP28. So that's the idea. So we are relaunching the climate working group. Please join. Please complete the form that Aminata just shared through the chat. We will be mapping all members attending to COP. We will be working together on this working group to make sure that we agree on the policy messages that we will be pitching at COP. So it is, again, as Adesu explained, it is always been, this is a joint effort. This consultation process is taking about 6 months. That's the idea, to work together to make sure that we get there strong enough to make our voices of members of GNDR heard at COP. You will find, we will share with you the recording of this webinar, also slides and presentations shared, and the roadmap to COP28. Please, be part of the working group. Work with us on preparing the best COP. And thank you all for attending. Thank you all for being here. Thank you again, Adesu. Thank you again, Aminata, and the rest of the team for making such a great webinar. Thank you, and I'll see you around.
Thank you, Marcos. Thank you, everyone.